Hey everybody, it's me, Stuart. Today we're going to read a story about the Ugly Duckling. Alright, here we go. It was a beautiful summer in the countryside. The corn was golden, the oats were green, and the haystacks were piled up in the meadows. The stork walked about on his long red legs, chattering away in Egyptian, which his mother had taught him. Surrounding the cornfields and meadows were large forests, in the midst of which were deep lakes. It was indeed lovely. Sounds nice. In a sunny spot near a deep river stood a pleasant old farmhouse. Along the river grew great burdock leaves, so tall that a child could stand underneath them. Wow. In this snug spot, a duck sat on her nest, waiting for her eggs to hatch. She was beginning to get tired of waiting, as her little ones were a long time coming out of their shells, and she didn't get many visitors. The other ducks much preferred to swim in the cool river than to climb the muddy slope and gossip with her. Oh, that's sad, she's all alone. At last, the eggshells cracked, one after the other. From each egg came a little creature that raised its head and cried out, "Peep, peep." "Quack, quack," said the mother, and then they all quacked as well as they could, and looked about them at the large green leaves. Their mother let them look as much as they liked, for green is good for the eyes. "Are you all hatched?" asked the duck. "No, I do declare, the biggest egg is still here. I hope this doesn't last too long, as I am quite tired of it." She settled herself back down on the nest. An old duck came to visit. "How are you getting on?" she asked. "One egg is still not hatched," replied the duck, "but the others are the prettiest ducklings you'll ever see." The old duck looked at the large unhatched egg. "I'm sure that is a turkey's egg. I was tricked into hatching some once. After all my trouble, they were afraid to go into the water. Take my advice. Leave it where it is and teach the other children to swim." "I will sit on it for a little longer," said the duck. "A few days longer will be nothing." "As you wish," said the old duck, and she took her leave. At last the large egg hatched. A young bird crept out crying, "Peep, peep." It was very large and ugly with gray feathers. The duck exclaimed, "It is so large and not at all like the others. Maybe it really is a turkey. I'll find out when we go to the water. It will go in, even if I have to push it in." The next day, the sun shone brightly on the green burdock leaves, so the mother duck took her children down to the water. She jumped in and cried, "Quack, quack." One after the other, the ducklings tumbled in after her. The water closed over their heads, but they all popped up in an instant and were soon swimming about prettily with their legs paddling away underneath them. The ugly duckling was also in the water, swimming, as well as any of them. "Well, he is not a turkey," said the mother. "See how well he paddles and how he holds himself upright. He is not so ugly if you look at him properly. Come on now, children. I will take you into society and introduce you to the farmyard. Stay close to me so you are not stepped on, and above all, look out for the cat." That silly cat. When they reached the farmyard, the mother duck said, "Let me see how well you can behave. Bow your heads to that old duck there. She is the highest born of them all. See how she has a red flag tied to her leg? It is a great honor and shows that everyone is anxious not to lose her. Come now, bend your neck and say quack." The ducklings did as they were told, but the other ducks stared and said, "What a queer looking duck one of them is." One spiteful duck flew at the ugly duckling and bit him. Oh no. "Leave him alone," cried his mother. "He is not doing any harm. He is so big and ugly," said the nasty duck, "and he should be turned away." "The others are very pretty," said the old duck. "What a shame this one cannot be hatched again." "He is not very pretty, your ladyship," said the mother duck, "but he has a very good disposition and swims better than the others. I think he has just stayed in the egg too long and his figure is not properly formed. "The other ducklings are graceful enough," said the old duck. "Now make yourself at home." The family made themselves at home, but the ugly duckling was chased and pushed and bitten and jeered at by all the poultry in the farmyard. It grew worse every day. The poor duckling was hunted by everyone, and even his brothers and sisters taunted him. And his mother said he wished he had never been born. Wow. At last, he ran away, frightening the little birds in the hedge as he flew over. "They are afraid because I am so ugly," the ugly duckling thought. He closed his eyes and flew until he came to a large moor where some wild ducks lived. Here, he stayed the night, very tired and sorrowful. Poor little duck. In the morning, the wild ducks stared at him. "What sort of duck are you?" they asked, crowding around. The duckling bowed to them, but he didn't answer. "You are very ugly," the wild duck said, "but you seem nice, and you can stay as long as you don't want to marry any of us." Poor duckling. All he wanted was to lie among the rushes and drink some water. He had been there 2 days when 2 young wild geese, or rather goslings, came to him. "You are so ugly that we like you well," one said. "Will you travel with us?" Pop, pop, suddenly sounded in the air, and the 2 geese fell down dead. Pop, pop, echoed out, and the ducks and geese rose up into the air. Hunters had surrounded the moor, and the sound continued from every direction. Then the hunting dogs came running through the rushes. Oh no, the poor duckling was terrified. A large, terrible dog came bounding past him with its jaws wide open and its tongue hanging out. It sniffed at the ugly duckling and bared its teeth, and its wild eyes gleamed. And then it splashed away without touching him. "I'm so ugly that not even a dog would bite me," sighed the duckling. All the day he lay still while the guns boomed overhead. It wasn't until late in the day that it became quiet, but the ugly duckling was too scared to move for several hours. He ran away from the moor as fast as he could until a storm blew up. As night fell, he came to a poor little cottage. The storm was so wild that the duckling could struggle on no further, and he sat down beside it. He noticed that one of the door's hinges had given out, and the door slanted in such a way that he could sneak inside, which, very quietly, he did. An old woman lived in the cottage with her tomcat in her prize hand. In the morning, they discovered their guest, and the cat began to purr and the hen clucked. "What is all that noise about?" asked the old woman. Her eyesight was not very good. So when the old woman saw the duckling, she thought it must be a duck. "What luck!" she exclaimed. "Now we shall have duck eggs. Unless it's a drake, I'll wait and see." The tomcat and the hen thought themselves the master and mistress of the house, and they were not pleased at all. The duckling was allowed to remain in the house on trial, but there were no eggs. "Can you lay eggs?" the hen asked the duckling. "No," he replied. "Then hold your tongue," said the hen. "Can you arch your back, or purr, or hiss?" asked the cat. "No," replied the duckling. "Then stay quiet when sensible people were talking," said the cat. Mean old cat. The duckling stayed in the corner, feeling very low and sad. Then one day, the sunshine and fresh air came into the room through the open door. The duckling was seized with such a longing to go swimming that he could not help but tell the hen about it. "What is this nonsense?" cried the hen. "You have nothing to do, so you are filling your head with fancies. If you could lay eggs or purr, you wouldn't have these ideas." "But it is so delightful to swim on the water," said the duckling, "and so refreshing to dive down to the bottom." "Why, you must be crazy," said the hen. "Ask the cat if he would like to swim about on the water. Ask our mistress if she would like to dive down and let the water close over her head. I advise you to learn to purr and lay eggs as soon as possible." "You don't understand me," said the duckling. "I think I must go out into the world again." "Indeed you must," said the hen, and so the ugly duckling left the cottage. Soon he found some water to swim and dive in, but the other animals avoided him because he was so ugly. Autumn came and the leaves turned gold. As winter approached, the trees grew bare and heavy dark clouds hung in the sky. Oh no. One evening, as the sun was setting, a large flock of beautiful birds flew overhead. The duckling had never seen any creatures like them before. They were swans with dazzling white feathers and long, graceful necks, who were flying to warmer countries. They uttered a peculiar cry as they flew. The ugly duckling felt strange as he watched them. He whirled around in the water, and stretching out his neck towards them, he uttered a cry so strange that it frightened him. He was beside himself with excitement and knew that he would never forget those beautiful, proud birds. He felt towards them as he had never felt towards any other creature. As winter closed in, the weather grew colder and colder. The ugly duckling had to swim about on the water to stop it from freezing. But every morning, the space he had left to swim in grew smaller and smaller. Oh no. Finally, the water began to freeze around him and he had to paddle with his legs as hard as he could to stop the space from closing completely. He grew so exhausted that he lay still and helpless, frozen in the ice. Uh-oh, that's not good. The next morning, a farmer was passing by when he found the duckling. He broke the ice around the duckling with his shoe and carried him home to his wife. Yeah, the farmer's wife revived the poor creature, and then the farmer's children tried to play with him. Not understanding, the duckling thought they wanted to harm him. In his terror, he fluttered into the milk pan and splashed milk about the room. Then he flew into the butter tub and into the meal barrel and out again. What a state he was in. The woman yelled and chased him with her broom, while the children laughed and screamed and fell over each other as they tried to catch him. At last, he slipped out through the open door and lay down exhausted under a bush in the snow. The poor duckling endured many miseries and privations during the hard winter. He was surviving out on a moor when the sun began to shine and the birds began to sing again for spring. The duckling found that his wings were stronger and he rose up into the air. He flew until he found himself in a large garden. The trees were in blossom and a stream wound its way through the grounds. When the duckling saw 3 beautiful white swans swimming lightly over the smooth water, he remembered these beautiful birds and felt more unhappy than ever. I will go to these birds, he thought, even if they kill me because I am so ugly and I dare to approach them. It would be better than pecked by the ducks, beaten by the hens, or starving of hunger in the winter. The duckling landed on the water and swam towards the swans. When they saw him, they rushed to him with wings outstretched. "Kill me," said the poor duckling, and he bowed his head down and waited for them to strike. But what did he see reflected in the clear stream? He saw his own image, no longer an ugly gray duckling, but a beautiful, graceful young swan. To be born in a duck's nest is of no consequence if one is born a swan. The duckling felt glad to have suffered all the sorrow and hardship, for he was better able to enjoy the pleasure and happiness he now felt. The other swans swam around him and welcomed him. Some young children came into the garden and threw some bread into the water. "There is a new one," they cried. They ran to their mother and father, shouting, "There is a new swan arrived. He is the most beautiful of all. He is so young and pretty." And the older swans bowed their heads to him. Then he felt ashamed and hid his head under his wing, for he did not know what to do. He was so happy, but he was not at all proud. He had been hated for his ugliness, and now he heard them saying he was the most beautiful. The sun shone warm and bright, and he lifted his head and cried out joyfully from the bottom of his heart, "I never dreamed of such happiness as this when I was an ugly duckling." Wow. See, everybody, it's not nice to pick on other people for how they look or, anything like that. Be nice to everybody, all right? Thanks for watching. Be sure to check out my other videos. See ya.